James's secretary destroyed Deep's special gift. Who will reveal the truth? It all began on a rainy morning, the kind where every drop feels like a whisper of something about to go wrong. Deep had spent weeks preparing a special gift for James, a hand-painted ceramic sculpture shaped like a lotus, a symbol of their journey through pain, love, and growth. Every detail she carved told a story. Every brushstroke held her sincerity. It wasn't just a gift, it was her heart. She wrapped it with care, wrote a heartfelt letter, and had it delivered to James's office with hope fluttering in her chest. But James never received it. Instead, when he met her the next day, his eyes were cold, his words distant. "Thank you for the thought," he said vaguely, as if brushing off something meaningless. Deep stood frozen. He didn't understand. He hadn't seen it. Her heart sank. What she didn't know was that someone else had. Trang, James's secretary. Trang had always worn a polite smile, but behind it was a quiet jealousy. She had watched James and Deep grow closer day by day, and somewhere deep inside, envy began to grow like a shadow. When the delicate package arrived on James's desk, Trang made a choice, a cruel one. She opened it, she saw the sculpture, and she shattered it. Then, with practiced calm, she removed all evidence, the letter, the broken ceramic, even the delivery slip. James never even knew it existed. But secrets have a way of surfacing. 2 weeks later, Deep visited James's office. Her eyes were gentle but unsure. She asked him softly, "Did you ever read my letter?" James frowned. "What letter?" And just like that, doubt began to bloom. The truth came from an unexpected place. An intern named Lynn, quiet and observant. Lynn had seen Trang throw away a broken ceramic piece that day. She had also noticed Trang acting strangely nervous. When Deep's name came up, her conscience wouldn't let her stay silent any longer. She approached Deep and told her everything. Deep didn't cry. Instead, she looked down for a moment, then whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, James called Trang into his office. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse her. He simply placed a copy of the security footage on his desk and asked, "Why?" Trang's silence said more than any words could. She was dismissed quietly that day. No scandal, no shouting, just the truth, finally standing tall. Later that week, James drove to Deep's village. He held in his hands a small box, a new ceramic lotus, this time made by a master artisan, but missing one thing, her touch. "I can never replace what you made," he said, kneeling before her, "but I will never again let your voice go unheard." Deep smiled, her eyes shimmering. Because sometimes, love isn't just about grand gestures, it's about listening, believing, and choosing each other, even when others try to pull you apart. Deep stood in silence for a moment, her fingers brushing lightly over the edge of the new ceramic lotus James had brought. It was beautiful, flawless, really, but it wasn't hers. It wasn't the one she had poured her soul into. She looked up at James. His eyes were soft, filled with remorse, but also something deeper, a silent plea for forgiveness. "I didn't need a replacement," she said gently. "I only wanted to know that what I gave mattered." James nodded slowly. "It did. It does. And I will spend every day proving that to you." There was a long pause before she finally reached for his hand. "Then let's start over. But this time, no more secrets. No more people between us." He nodded again, this time with a promise in his gaze. Though Trang had been dismissed, her damage went deeper than either of them realized. 2 weeks later, rumors began to circulate online, whispers about Deep being a gold digger, about James favoring her unfairly in company decisions, about her manipulating him with emotions. It was clear someone was feeding lies to the press. The attacks were personal, cruel, and calculated. James was furious. He called his PR team into action, hired a private investigator, and tried to shield Deep from the worst of the media storm. But the damage was done. Her name was everywhere. Her photos splashed across gossip blogs. Deep, though shaken, refused to hide. "I won't let someone else's bitterness define who I am," she told James. "I stood beside you when you were at your lowest. I'll do the same now." Then came a surprise. Lynn, the same intern who exposed Trang, came forward again. She had found a suspicious email chain. Trang had been in contact with a tabloid journalist. Even before the gift incident, she hadn't just acted alone, she had a motive and a plan. She wanted to ruin your relationship, Lynn said quietly, and maybe your company, too. James felt a chill run through him. Who else was involved? Lynn hesitated. I don't know yet, but I think someone helped her. Someone's still inside. James and Deep realized this was more than just jealousy. It was sabotage. There were layers to this conspiracy, and they'd only scratched the surface. Someone wanted them torn apart, and someone wanted James out of power. But James wasn't the type to back down. He turned to Deep that night under the stars, holding her close as if anchoring himself to something real. They tried to destroy the gift you made, he said, voice steady, but the truth is, you are the gift, and I won't let anyone take that away. She leaned against his chest, her voice soft but firm. Then we fight, together. Days passed, and the pressure intensified. Rumors spread like wildfire, and shareholders began to question James's leadership. The board demanded answers. James stayed calm on the surface, but Deep could see the storm brewing inside him. Meanwhile, Lynn quietly continued, investigating. One evening, she slipped into James's office with a file in her hand, her face pale but determined. I found something, she whispered. It's not just Trang. She placed the documents on the desk, copies of encrypted emails, money transfers, and a list of recent anonymous company leaks. At the bottom of it all was a name James didn't expect to see, Vice Director Hong. James clenched his jaw. Hong had been with the company for years, loyal, or so James thought. The betrayal cut deep. He's the one who encouraged me to hire Trang, James murmured, piecing the puzzle together. He must have been using her to sabotage from the inside. Deep stepped forward. Then we go public with the truth, before he has the chance to do more damage. James shook his head. Not yet. We need proof, undeniable, irreversible proof. And when we have it, we end this. Not just for the company, but for us. Deep, with her calm resolve and sharp intuition, proposed an idea. Let's invite Hong to the Investors Gala next week. Announce a fake partnership, something he'll want to sabotage. We'll bait him into revealing himself. James hesitated, then nodded. You'll be in danger. I already was, she said softly, but I'm not afraid anymore. With Lynn's help, they wired James's office and prepped fake documents. They planted a false press release in a restricted folder, a fictional announcement of a major merger that would supposedly put Hong out of power. Just as they expected, the bait worked. 2 days before the gala, someone attempted to leak the document, and it wasn't from the marketing team. All traces pointed directly to Hong's assistant, James, armed with security footage and digital trails, finally had what he needed. The night of the gala arrived. Hong smiled politely, pretending nothing was amiss. He toasted champagne with investors, laughed at jokes, and even complimented Deep's dress. Then James took the stage. I stand before you tonight not just as CEO, he said clearly, but as a man who has learned the price of trust and the cost of betrayal. He clicked a remote. On the screen behind him appeared the chain of emails, the digital signatures, and the wire transfers, all linked to Vice Director Hong. Gasps echoed through the room. Hong froze, security closed in. You tried to destroy everything I built, James said quietly as Hong was escorted out. But you forgot the one thing I'd never lose. He looked out at the crowd, eyes locking with Deep's, her. The media turned, the rumors faded. Hong was arrested, and Trang was exposed as a pawn in something far bigger than her own jealousy. James's reputation was restored, but more importantly, so was the peace between him and Deep. One evening, back in their quiet garden, he placed the broken pieces of her original ceramic lotus on the table. I couldn't fix it, he said, but maybe we can rebuild it. Together, Deep smiled, tears shining in her eyes. That's all I ever wanted. They sat side by side under the stars, gluing the delicate pieces back together, cracks and all, a symbol of love that had been tested, broken, and made stronger. It started with an anonymous letter, no return address, no name. Just a simple envelope left on James's office desk early one morning. His assistant, Trang, was unusually silent that day, her eyes darting around nervously as she handed him his usual morning coffee. James opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a photo of the broken ceramic box, the one Deep had gifted him, lying shattered in a trash bin. Time-stamped the night of the gala. Alongside the photo was a short note written in bold black ink. Sometimes the enemy sleeps, closest to your throne. James's eyes narrowed. He knew what this meant. Someone from his own team had betrayed him, and possibly Deep. The photo proved what Deep had said was true. The gift had been destroyed. But she had never told him someone else might have done it. Was she trying to protect someone, or had she not known? His mind raced back to that evening. Trang had volunteered to help prepare the office for the celebration. She had seemed supportive, loyal. But now, the unease in her eyes made sense. That evening, James met Deep under the moonlight near the lake by her house. He handed her the photo and the note. Her hands trembled as she looked at them. "James, who would do this?" she whispered. He looked at her gently. "That's what I intend to find out." James decided not to confront Trang immediately. Instead, he planned a small celebration at the company, announcing a new team recognition day. Everyone was invited. Deep, too. During the event, James gave a heartfelt speech about loyalty and truth. Then, he casually mentioned the gift, the ceramic box Deep had made for him, and asked, smiling, "Does anyone remember seeing it the night of the gala?" Most nodded vaguely, but Trang froze, her drink held midair. James continued, watching her carefully. "Funny thing is, someone found it broken, and someone else left a message, warning me." Trang tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. "Maybe it was just an accident. Or maybe," James said slowly, "someone didn't want Deep to be seen in a good light. Someone jealous." The room went silent. Trang stood up suddenly. "Excuse me, I need some air." James let her go. He turned to Deep. "She's hiding something. I'll make sure she confesses. But I want to do this right." Later that evening, James walked into his office. Trang was there, crying. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, her voice small. "I was just angry. She was taking your attention, your time. I was the one always by your side. I thought, if the gift disappeared, maybe you'd see she didn't belong here." James stood silently, his face unreadable. "You were like family, Trang," he said finally. "But what you did wasn't just about a gift. It was about disrespecting someone I cared deeply about." Trang lowered her head. "I'm sorry, James. I'll resign tomorrow." The next day, James and Deep stood outside the office together. The wind was gentle, and Deep looked up at him with soft eyes. "You didn't need to go that far to protect me," she said. "I didn't do it just for you," James replied. "I did it for the truth, and because I never want you to feel like your love or your efforts can be destroyed by anyone else's bitterness." Deep smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then let's start fresh. No more secrets. No more shadows." James took her hand, only light between us, and together, they walked forward, stronger, wiser, and more in love than ever before. In every relationship, whether personal or professional, trust, honesty, and respect are the foundation. The story of James Deep and Trang reminds us that jealousy and insecurity can destroy not only valuable gifts but also human connections. Trang allowed her silent envy to turn into action, harming someone who had done nothing but love sincerely. But the truth, no matter how hidden, always finds a way to the surface, and when it does, it reveals who truly stands by us. From this, we learn that true love does not need to be proven by material things but by intentions, sincerity, and actions. Trust, once broken, is difficult to repair, but standing up for the truth can heal wounds. Those who try to destroy others to gain favor will eventually lose both respect and opportunity.